Hey, you there. Draw your drapes tight tonight, and let the draught slip through the cracks in the stone. Settle here beside this ancient bed where sorrow once pooled like cold rainwater. You lie on a straw mattress that squeaks beneath your ribs, while a single candle stub sighs its wax across a tarnished pewter plate. Some nights, they said, the darkness itself was a cure, thick, suffocating, heavy enough to crush all thoughts of tomorrow, dot your breath ghosts in the chill. This chamber reeks faintly of rosemary and old sweat, herbs hung above the lintel to keep away spirits that prey on sadness. They believed in humors, 4 rivers flowing inside your flesh, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black. Always the black bile, sludging behind your eyes when you felt too much. So here you lie like so many did, eyes pinned open to the rafters, counting beams cracked by time, wondering if sleep will come before the next cry of the cock at dawn. But you are not alone in this room, not really. Your skin itches where lice find warmth. The scurrying in the thatch above reminds you that hunger has many teeth. They say the melancholic ones fed the rats with their crumbs and prayers, too tired to chase the vermin away, too heavy to care if tiny paws danced across. Their feet at midnight dot by your bedside sits a chipped clay cup, brimming with bitter wine steeped in poppy. One sip and your tongue turns leaden, your limbs sink deeper into straw. But the dreams that come are not always gentle. Some carry you down catacomb corridors where monks once laid relics, bone splinters that might soothe your mind or crack. It open wider, Dot, and if you wake before dawn and the black bile still clings to your ribs, the barber awaits with his gleaming blade, for they believed a little blood spilled was a lighter soul gained. A basin waits by your feet, crimson swirls mixing with water that smells faintly of iron and mildew. Dot, listen. Can you hear it? The hush of chants in the chapel beyond your wall, prayers mumbled half in hope and half in dread that the demons plucking your thoughts might lose their grip, that the flicker in your gaze might steady before you greet the sun. Draw the wool blanket higher. Feel the prickle of rough weave against your chin. Remember they stuffed pillows with rue and rosemary, even rose petals if they could afford it. Anything to tame the stink of sweat and sickly dreams. You roll onto. Your side, the floor beneath you cold enough to leach heat from your bones. And you wonder, did the village-wise woman whisper a charm into that poppy wine? Did she slip a graveyard clod beneath your bed? For some secrets sleep better buried, but the melancholic could never bury their minds. So they buried their senses instead. A relic, a saint's knuckle wrapped in velvet, waits beneath your pillow. It scrapes your temple each time you shift. A scratch to remind you that heaven watches, but even heaven can't always silence the shadows. And so you lie there, a body stuck between prayers and nightmares, counting each heartbeat like a miser counts coins, hoping the next breath might sink deeper, deeper, until thought unravels. Before we slip deeper, hush your thoughts for just a breath longer. If this shadowed chamber feels like yours now, if the hush seeps warm under your ribs, then press the candle flame for me. Subscribe. Let the glow mark you as one who listens while others sleep. Tell me, where do you drift from tonight? What hour curls cold around your ankles? Whisper it below. It binds you to the hush we keep. This circle, this ancient rumor, it grows with every heart that beats in the dark. No priest hears these confessions. No scroll holds these secrets. But you do, and now we do, together. So let your breath hush, the relic scratch its blessing, and the drape fall heavy behind you. For deeper still the barber waits, the poppy wine thickens, and the demons brushing. Your dreams will find you, but never alone. Let the incense coil through your room. Let the relic beneath your pillow scratch one last blessing, and hush your breath. For in the next chamber the barber's blade gleams, the poppy wine thickens, and the demons that brush your dreams wait just beyond the drape. Rest easy, for the night is long, and these old stone walls have many more miseries to share before the first bird dares to sing. Listen. The candle's flame stutters, casting your shadow like a ghost stitched to these cracked stone walls. Tonight you watch a girl, a soul not unlike yours, lying on the edge of her straw bed, one hand knotted into the corner of a scratchy blanket, the other wrapped tight around a sprig of rue she plucked from her mother's garden before dusk. She is 17. And they have told her this sorrow is a demon nesting inside her ribs, a devil that rattles her bones when sleep dares to come. You can smell it, the bitter root steeped in watered ale left at her bedside, the musty tang of dried herbs that fail to cover the mildew creeping up the chamber wall. Each night she does the same. She peels back the blanket just enough to let the chill bite her legs, a cruel trick the village healer says, for cold can shock sadness out through the soles of the feet. She whispers a half-remembered song, something about Saint Dymphna, the one who guards the melancholy, but her tongue trips and the words crumble in the dark. Her mother left her an old charm once, a scrap of linen tied with 3 knots, one. For each prayer, each tear, each hour of sleep she's owed. Tonight it is tucked under her pillow, pressing into the soft spot behind her ear, a tiny reminder that some comfort can be felt even if it does nothing to chase the demons away. You lean closer. The bed creaks under her shifting weight, each turn stirring the lice that hide where straw pokes through the seams. She scratches her scalp, fingernails dirty from digging a grave that morning. A child down the lane claimed by the same dark humors she now fights in her own marrow. Outside, a dog howls. Or is it something else? In these nights every sound bends, becomes a shape in the mind, a cloaked figure lurking behind the rafter, a priest's whisper promising relief that never comes. She rolls onto her back and lifts the clay cup to her cracked lips. The brew is bitter, but it slows the racing thoughts. A single candle stub gutters beside her, the flame teasing shadows into monsters on the low-beamed ceiling. She tries to count them, 1, 2, 3, but her eyes blur, lashes damp with tears that never get to dry. And you lie there too, your breath matching hers, your bones pressing into straw that smells of mold and old sweat. You feel the rough scrape of linen against your neck, the drip of wax on your knuckles when you reach for the cup she leaves behind. It tastes of earth, stale ale, poppy, and the faintest hope that dawn will bring an hour of dreamless hush. Dreams in this century are not gentle things. They come clawed and heavy, riding on fears whispered by village gossips, fueled by rumors that the melancholic are witches in disguise, souls too bruised to be trusted, too soft to stand the weight. Of the Lord's world doth you see her fingers slip beneath her mattress. She pulls out a sliver of bone, not quite saintly, a relic her uncle claims is blessed by the Holy Mother herself. It is wrapped in blue silk, creases yellowed with sweat. She clutches it to her chest, whispers her sin into the splintered wood. Beam overhead, a promise that if sleep comes, she will confess her sorrow to the priest come Sunday dot. The night is a long corrida. Cold wind slips under the door, rattling the rushes scattered on the floor. Somewhere behind the cottage the midwife's cat pads across a grave mound, soft paws stirring up the ghost of the child whose cough still echoes if you listen close. Enough that you close your eyes, but the hush isn't kind. You feel the damp seeping up through the floorboards, the tremor of a heartbeat that isn't quite your own. Your breath fogs the air, sweet with rue and rosemary, and the faint iron tang of that charm pressing into your skin. You wonder, how many like her lie awake in this century? How many grasp splinters of holy bone, sip bitter wine, listen to rats, scratch their secrets into the thatch overhead? Tonight you are not just a witness, you are a co-conspirator. Your eyelids heavy, but your mind snagged on the rumor that sorrow can be leached. Bled into a basin at dawn, left out for the crows to carry off Dot, so you stay, one eye half open to the dark, one hand draped over your belly where the black bile pools, where the night crawls in, where the promise of a dreamless sleep is all that keeps your bones from crumbling into dust. Draw the blanket higher. Let the candle drown in its own wax. Press your lips to the rim of the cup. Taste the ancient bitterness that soothed so many and silenced so few. When your breath slows and the girl's eyes flutter shut, you both drift into that shallow river of hush, where relics scrape your cheek and the old saints pretend not to. See what misery you have hidden under your straw mattress. Tomorrow the sun might find you, or it might not. But tonight, here in this crumbling chamber, you sleep alongside every sorrow that ever begged for mercy from the dark. You're not even sure you're awake now, or if the hush has folded you inside its mildew-scented sleeve. Dot, outside the stone wall, the wind rattles loose slates on the roof, soft drips of rain find the cracks, snake down to the rushes by your cheek. You lie there, half tangled in that rough wool blanket. Your heartbeat a hollow drum against the bruised place where sleep should rest. They say, and they've always said, that sleep never comes free for the sorrowful, that the dark inside, you might slip out if you're careless, stain the pillow, spill into the walls, birth a demumphet curls at the foot of your straw bed, like a muttering dog. You feel it sometimes the way your pulse stutters when the candle guttering low throws shadows too wide, too shaped like a figure who should not be standing there. They say melancholy is a wound you must feed, or else it feeds on you, piece by piece, rib by rib. Dot. You see her again, the girl from the last chamber, still clutching her knotted linen charm. Her eyes flicker open to the rafters. Lips parted around words she doesn't dare finish. She's heard the rumor, too, that you can sow your sadness into another's dream. If you lie close enough, skin to skin, breath to breath. Some nights a brother, a cousin, any warm body will. Do. Dot. It's not desire. It's just a way to trick the demon. A superstition passed by women who know the cost of being left alone with sorrow under the same leaking roof. Your feet brush straw, searching for warmth, a patch of blanket damp from an earlier shiver. You try not to think about what you've heard, how the old midwife swears by a ritual, a handful of grave dirt sprinkled into a basin under the bed, a drip of candle wax, to seal the spirit in place. If you wake and find muddy footprints circling your straw mat, you've done it wrong, and the melancholy will find a new nook in your bones dot in another chamber. Not far from here, a widow lies awake, her fingers raw, from worrying a string of cheap glass beads. She's counted them so many times the prayers slip into nonsense half-psalm, half-curse, half-promise. She breathes in the stink of rotting rushes, prays the melancholy will pass her by tonight. But you know it never does dot, it just slips from chamber to chamber, bed to bed, a rumor that clings to sweat-damp hair and the itch of lice under the collar. They say there's another way if the devil's humors grow too heavy. You find a patch of graveyard no priest tends, crawl into the dirt. Press your ribs to the grave of a sinner, let the worms nibble at your bad dreams. A slow, shivering trade, your sorrow for a mouthful of earth. You can almost taste it, the iron tang of soil that sticks under your fingernails, the hush that settles when you lie there long and auto forget which heartbeat is yours. The girl rolls over. Her knotted charm slips under the straw. Lost until dawn, she dreams a priest stands by her bed, one hand warm on her throat, the other, pressing a holy relic so deep into her chest it bruises the soft place beneath her collarbone dot. In that dream, the relic hums, pulling the black bile from her veins, thread by thread, until she's hollow enough to float. But you know how these stories go. There's always a catch. They say you must give something up. A secret, a drop of blood, a lock of hair buried under the chapel stone floor. No one knows if it works, but they try anyway, because in these nights, rumor is as close to hopius you're ever going to taste. You lie there, pressed flat to the straw, your breath slow, your eyes wide in the dark. Outside, the wind rattles a shutter loose, a thin wail like the ghost of a psalm whispered by the last soul who lay awake in this room. Dot your fingers, brush the damp edge of the blanket, trace a shape that might be a charmed noter, just another tear in the weave. You wonder, when the church bells ring at matins, when the rats slip back to the rafters, when the first crow calls from the blackthorn tree, will you be lighter? Or will the sorrow have settled deeper, a stone in your gut, a curse you carry to the next bed, the next room, the next century? Tonight you taste the rumor on your tongue, earth, grave dirt, bitter root. You feel it stir behind your ribs, that crawling thing that doesn't sleep when you do. And you know somewhere down the corridor, another candle guttered out, another prayer went unanswered, another body curled into itself to keep the melancholy in dot, so you stay awake just long enough to listen to the soft skitter of mice in the thatch, the faint drip of rain through the stone, the creak of a beam that might bear the weight of all your whispered sins. You breathe slow, one thought, one pulse, one dread at a time, and promise the hush that tomorrow, maybe tomorrow, you'll let the sorrow find someone else to haunt. You lie awake, the scratch of straw pokes through the threadbare wool beneath your ribs, the smell of wet rushes rising like an old ghost each time you shift. Your feet curl tighter, tugging at a corner of the blanket that smells faintly of rosemary, an old charm against the creeping bile. Outside the shutter, the wind claws at the gaps between the stones, pulling at your candle flame until the shadows shiver across the wall. In the hush, you taste it, the old stories whispered from mother to daughter, monk to novice, about how sadness in these centuries was never just a feeling. It was a sickness that sank its teeth in the soft meat between your bones. The learned men, pale scribes hunched by candlelight, named it melancholia, a poison birthed by too much. Black bile pooling deep in the belly, souring your blood, clouding your thoughts like breath on frozen glass. You see them now, the monks scratching ink across parchment, stars charted in cramped script, Saturn blamed for each sigh that slipped past your cracked lips at dawn. Saturn cold, dry, merciless, the root of your endless hush. And so they devised cures, some soft, some sharp, each more desperate than the last. Imagine the barber surgeon, blade glinting by the hearth, soap bubbles flecked with blood, your wrist held steady over a chipped wooden bowl, thin rivulets of sorrow dripping into the swirl of rust and foam. They said it would balance your humors, bleed the gloom right out, make room for laughter, for dreams not stained with graveyard dirt. Yet you know sometimes it worked. More often, it just left your head light and auto float through another dusk with your shadows in tow. Not every chamber smelled of iron and damp straw. In the manor's highest room, a noble woman lies on silk, her pillow stuffed with dried lavender, a pinch of poppy seeds stitched in secret. A nun in the village brews her tinctures behind thick doors, herbs steeped in dark wine that slips like velvet down your throat. You taste it now, that slow burn of opium wine, the way it hugs the dread behind your eyes, wraps it in a dream so deep you forget your own name until the rooster crows. But the humors were only half the story. When the sadness refused to lift, they turned to relics, bones of saints, splinters of a holy cross sealed in iron locket sand, pinned to the inside of your gown. You picture it now, a woman pressing her lips to the cold knuckle bone of a martyred priest, whispering her despair into the cracks like it's a confession the living could never bear. They say if you wept enough, at the relic's feet, the devil's bile would trickle out with your tears, leaving you pure enough to sleep like a child again. Yet for the truly wretched, those for whom prayers failed, herbs soured, and bloodletting turned the world gray, there was one last hush, waiting at the edge of the graveyard. You've heard it, how some crept through the churchyard gates by moonlight, laid themselves across the mound of a known sinner, a murderer's plot, unblessed, unmarked, but for a rotting, cross-leaning like a drunk at the end of a village lane. If the earth sucked your warmth out, if the worms kissed your toes, perhaps your sorrow would stay buried when you rose to greet the dawn. You can smell it now, the iron bite of wet earth, the mildew clinging to your hair as you drag yourself back home before the bells toll man, Tins. Inside. The hearth guttering low, a mother snoring beside her husband, their feet tangled in rough linen. You slip back under your blanket, a curl of grave dirt still caught under your fingernails. You wonder, did it work? Or did you drag something else back with you? Some whisper that slips through the cracks in the timber walls, rattles the candle flame when you close your eyes. In the hush, your mind drifts to the relics hidden in pillows, the rosemary stitched into seams, the small, secret jars of leeches left on window sills where children dared not look. You think of the peasant girl across the lane, her hair reeking of garlic and rue, breathing damp prayers into a bag of herbs clutched to her breastes. If it were a lover who would never leave her side, and the old man in the corner cell, muttering curses to Saint Dymphne, fingers raw from rubbing cheap beads, each prayer scraping a layer off his tongue, this is your inheritance, not just the gloom, but the soft conspiracy of centuries. A hush of women and men who bartered bits of themselves still keep the demon from nesting too deep. You see it in the flicker of the lamp, feel it in the rough wool beneath your shoulder blades, all that desperate hope woven into the linen and the straw. Even now, you catch the drift of rosemary and mildew, the relic pressing its cold promise to the hollow of your throat. You lie there, counting heartbeats, each a pulse of dread that echoes back to the time when Saturn still ruled your stars. And you know, no matter how many charms you tie under your bed, no matter how many drops of blood you feed to the rushes, the hush will find you again tomorrow, and the night after that. In this place, there is no final cure, no bright dawn free of shadows, only the slow drip of rumor, the soft bite of ritual, the quiet pact between your bones and the earth below. You breathe it, and when the wind rattles the shutter one last time, you almost believe you'll sleep sound, enough of the demon to lose your sight just for tonight. You lie there, hush pressed into your ribs like a weight you can't name, a hush that never quite lifts, even when dawn's pale fingers slip through the warped shutter. Your breath curls against the wool scratch of your blanket, the scent of damp straw drifting up each time you shift your legs for warmth. You're not alone in this. The hush has kin, scattered through these crooked lanes like soot caught in a gutter. Each breath you take carries the river, the hearth, the rotting beams overhead. You think of her, the baker's daughter, who hums at the riverbank at dawn. You've watched her, bare feet pressing cold mud, skirts pinned at her hip, soap lather catching in the cracks of her red knuckles. She leans over the water like she's whispering to it, the suds sliding away with the bits of old sorrow stitched into the linen. Her mother taught her that a river steals your bile if you let it, if you scrub hard enough, if you sing the tune passed down from a grandmother who once laid herbs across her belly to keep the night spirits out. You see her now, her eyes half closed, humming through cracked lips, the steam of her breath slipping across the slow swirl of water. Her prayers are small, but they are hers. No relic, no bleeding bowl, no priest's stale words, just the hush of soap and stone, the slow dance of her sadness floating downstream, like a promise no one else will ever hear. Some say she leaves sprigs of rosemary wrapped in old cloth, wedged between river rocks where the current tugs but can't steal them away. A charm against the return, for even a river forgets. You know she hums the same tune when she crawls back to her pallet at dusk, bare feet still damp. They hush, clinging to her hair like riverweed. She can't brush out before the candle gutters low. And there's the mason's boy, a rumor stitched in calluses and chapped lips. You hear the whispers in the baker's line. In the space between coins one hands pass bread warm from the hearth. His mother pins scraps of parchment to the inside of his tunic, each scrap scrawled with a prayer older than the stones he stacks at the Lord's manor. They say when his humors stir, when the black bile crawls behind his ribs, he presses his palm flat over that folded charm, as if warmth alone might keep the demon from knowing its way out. He's not the only one. A widow in the thatched cottage near the frost-bitten orchard keeps a clay bowl of milk by her bedside every dusk. Not for her cat, long dead. Our ibis rotted under the bare apple trees, but for the night creature that creeps through keyholes, hungry for the taste of sorrow. Sweet milk, a bribe for the dark thing, an old pact whispered by a mother who lost 3 Sansto the hush of fever, and a 4th to the hush that hums behind the ice when the frost stays too long. Your mind drifts there to her coarse palate, the spoon carved by her father's father, the hearth where the flame flickers thin as a breath that never quite fills your chest. She dips her finger in the milk before sleep draws a circle on her brow, a promise the demon will stay full tonight, won't. Slip under the blanket to braid sorrow into her dreams. You know these people. You know their hush because you wear it too, wrapped in your blanket, tucked beneath the coarse straw that pricks your skin like tiny teeth waiting for blood they'll never taste. Some nights you swear the hush is all that keeps your bones from rattling apart. And then there's the beggar boy at the edge of the market, the one who mutters to the pigeons, each word catching on his cracked tongue like a secret only the crows understand. They say he buries clove buds beneath his sleeping mat, tiny teeth of the earth to bite the bile before it blooms. Behind his eyes that no one feeds him relics that no priest bothers with his humors. His cure is the hush of the street, the frost of cobblestone pressed into his chicuntle. The bile forgets how to speak his name. You pull your blanket tighter now, your toes brushing the scratch of an old rosemary sprig, tied with a threadbare ribbon. It's your charm, foolish, maybe, but older than the roof that creaks overhead. You've thought of the river more than once, slipping down while the moon holds its breath, letting the cold swirl the bile from your veins the way it does for her. But you never go. Your feet stay tangled in straw. Your hands clutch the edge of your hush like a lover who never leaves, no matter how many prayers you fold into the creases of your pillow. Tomorrow you'll see them again. The baker's daughter, skirts hitched high, soap suds licking at her knees. The mason's boy, his fingers raw from stacking stones, the parchment pressed so tight to his chest the ink bleeds into his skin. The widow, bent over her hearth, muttering over a bowl of sweet milk that no child's lips will ever touch. And the beggar boy, curled beside the market gate, clove buds buried beneath his bones. They carry the hush like you do, like a stain, stitched deep under the skin where no blade can reach, like a lullaby that never sweetens, only hums on and on, threading its way through your hair, your teeth, the warm pool behind your eyes. You can taste it now, rosemary, soap, frost, a river that never forgets, a promise that tomorrow the hush will wake with you, curling in your belly like silt, whispering that the bile is yours. Always. The shutter rattles, your candle flickers, dying on the chipped ledge beside your cheek. You close your eyes, and in that slow drift you think you hear the river's tune, the hum of a girl's breath, the scrape of stone on linen, the soft click of cloves between a beggar's teeth, all of you woven into the hush. Sleep comes like that, slow, sour, soft. The hush settles over your chest like a second blanket, warm with the breath of every soul who ever learned scrub the bile from their skin and knew it would come back tomorrow hungry as frost. You roll onto your side, straw crackling beneath your hip, the hush so thick it's like swallowing cloth. Tonight, the bile feels thicker, a sour tide pooling behind your ribs. Your eyes flick to the bundle by the hearth, twisted cloth, the shape of a small, unholy promise. They say for the worst nights, when the melancholy claws through your breastbone, you must bleed the blackness out, not from your arm or your brow, but from a place more secret, more tender, a leech pressed, below the navel, hidden by candlelight and rough linen, its small mouth kissing your warmth until the bile leaks free and you drift in that woozy hush where no nightmares find you. You picture it now, the apothecary's boy dipping his finger into a jar, coaxing the tiny creature, awake with the warmth of his palm. He learned from his mother, who learned from a crone in the village before her, how a woman's sorrow tastes sweeter near the womb, how a man's bile pools low when the moon is thin dot soft and shameful, the hush of blood beneath the skin, and the slow slip of pain that leaves you lighter but never clean. But not everyone trusts the leech. Some say a clove of raw garlic tucked deep inside keeps the humors from boiling over. You hear whispers in the weaver's stall, a girl, barely of age, who swears the cloves keep the demons out, that their bite keeps her from weeping into her husband's shoulder when the night is long and his fists smell of ale dot in the grand houses. They hide their melancholy under silks, velvet, drapes, masking the true stink of bile and bruised flesh. Yet even the lords slip odd things beneath their skins, pellets of dried rue ground fine, wrapped in gauze, pressed into secret folds so no priest sees their shame. When they lie beside wives who smell of rose oil and sin, the small itch reminds them they have tried, they have done what the wise women said would tame the bile. You think of the herbal midwife at the edge of the village, the one whose shutters never open in daylight. Some say she brews infusions so bitter they peel the tongue raw, a black potion that settles like stone in the belly. When the bile rises too high, she offers the final charm, a thorn of hawthorn slipped beneath the tongue while you sleep, its sharp point pricking you awake just enough to remind your body that life is pain, that sorrow must not grow comfortable. You've seen her once, her wrists stained with mugwort, apron stiff with dried blood. A girl stumbled from her hut at dawn, hair matted, thighs slick with the hush of too much hope. They say she left the thorn in her mouth until it split her dreams, and woke with no memory of the nightmare that nursed. At her breast, better an empty cradle than a heart swollen with bile dot your own breath. Comes shallow now, imagining the garlic, the rue, the leech's kiss. Would you dare it? Would you bare your softest flesh to the tiny mouth, feel it latch while the candle flickers, hear it suckle in the hush of your room? Would you trust the river to wash you clean after, or the soap, or the rough brush of straw as you curl your knees to your chest? Your tongue feels dry at the thought. You shift your weight, pressing your palm flat over your belly, imagining the small wriggle, the trickle of warmth that follows. You wonder who else lies awake tonight, a lady in silk drapes, thighs bandaged in rue, a servant girl pressing cloves inside herself in the cold dark, a mason's wife, blood pooling in a cracked basin as her husband snores on, never asking why her cheeks pale each month dot in the hush. You feel them all woven into you by the same bile, the same firth that no prayer, no relic, no river can carry it all away. Only flesh can bleed it. only small mouths and secret thorns. Only the garlic sting hidden where no priest dares to look. You shiver, not from cold, but from knowing that these cures were not a cure at all. Just another hush. Another chambered dordo, close behind your ribs when the bile comes calling. Ah, bitter mercy wrapped in linen, a soft, sticky promise that the body remembers even what the mind tries to forget. You press your thighs together, feel the hush press back in that slow drift. You sense the leech's whisper, the garlic's sharp burn, the ruse ghost rising behind your tongue. You breathe out, and the hush breathes you back. Sleep comes, and with it, the black bile hums beneath your belly, soft as an old lover, hungry as frost. You pull your knees close, straw prickling your calves, breath warm in the hush that clings like old wool. Sometimes you think the hush breathes with you, one shallow pulse in, one sour drift out. But tonight it carries something else. The rumor, they swear, is older than the river that slices this valley in half. They say, if the bile won't loosen, if the melancholic curls so tight in your belly that no leech will feed, no garlic will burn, no thorn will prick you back to waking, you must find the grave sleeper's bed, a patch of earth soft as milk skin, tucked behind the churchyard wall where the unshriven lie, no cross, no candle, just soil loamy with forgotten bones, and the hush of rot that never quite quiets. It said the midwife's daughter went there once, a girl of 14 winters, cheeks drawn hollow as reed stems, eyes sunk deep, ringed in the bruises of a sleep that never soothed. She laid her straw pallet across the fresh grave of a Manthe, called the false confessor. A priest turned poisoner, choked on his own curses bore. The gallows could stretch his neck long. They buried him quick and quiet. Dirt slapped over his traitor's tongue while the village bell refused to toll. And she, thin hands trembling, hair tangled with rosemary sprigs, she lay there all night, pressing her ribs into the soil until the worms beneath turned her, bile sweet again. Or so they whispered. No one saw her go, but the graveyard dog, a limping shadow with a mangled ear, who sniffed her feet and slunk away before the dawn could shame them both. You taste the rumor in your mouth now, earthy, damp, a bit of old sin that sours the tip of your tongue. They say the grave sleeper's bed hums with a strange warmth, not fire warm, but something else. A hush that seeps up from the ribs below, bones that remember what it is to rot with secrets. Still locked in marrow, some claim the hush steals back what the bile took, your appetite, your sleep, your taste for bread that doesn't turn to clay on your tongue. But others swear the girl woke with worms at her feet, soft and white as new milk, threading through the hem of her shift, tickling the skin behind her knees until she wept last of her dreams into the hollow grave. You wonder, would you dare it? Slip barefoot through the bramble that scratches your shins raw, slither through the gate where the iron latch squeals like a rat's dying cry? Lay yourself down on the fresh mound, spine pressing into damp earth, the hush pressing back like a lover's cold hand at your throat? Would you trust the false confessor's bones to carry your sorrow down, deep enough that no priest's words could haul it up again? You close your eyes now, picturing the girl's pale feet, one heel black with soil, a single rosemary sprig crushed in her palm. They say she woke at dawn, bile rinsed clean as river glass, the hush gentler in her chest than it had ever been. Beneath her mother's thatch roof, But they also say, and here the rumor drips thicker, like honey left too long in a damp jar, that she never truly came back. Her sleep grew soft. Yes, her laughter sweet enough to draw the mason's son to her door with an old pewter ring clutched tight in his fist. But at night the hush called, her bones deeper, and when he woke, he found her lying half sunk in the garden, skin cold as the clay pots she used for rosemary root. He buried her where he found her, just a girl, tucked beneath the kitchen herbs. No priest to fuss, no relic to mark the spot. And some say, when the moon is new and the mist curls low, you can see her shape there, breath fogging the leaves, a whisper caught in the rosemary stems. She hums to the worms now, keeps their secrets. Soft, spins the hush back into the roots, so any girl who dreams of the grave sleeper's bed will remember how deep the hush can pull. Your ribs tighten at the thought, sleep pressed close to rot, bile swapped for worms, a lullaby sung from a tongue that once tasted confession but never grace. You tuck your blanket higher, feel the straw scratch your throat, and wonder if the hush that lives in your belly might one day hunger for a grave of its own. You breathe slow in, out, the hush pulsing soft behind your eyes. Some rumors never die, they just drift, seed to seed, worm to root, a hush that never starves. You close your eyes and let the rumor curl inside you, soft as the soil behind the church wall, hungry as frost, patient as the girl who hums to the worms when the moon forgets her name. You settle deeper beneath your threadbare blanket, the hush of the graveyard rumor still humming at the edge of your ribs. But here, inside your four timber-board walls, you chase it back, wrap it in layers of familiar sound, familiar smell. Creak in the timber seems to sigh with you, an old lullaby stitched into beams that were once the ribs of a shipper, the bones of a grove where villagers swore witches hung their charms. You listen for the drip, the slow tap of rain leaking through the thatch above your pallet, each drop pooling into a clay bowl at your bedside, your breath clouds in the half-light, a wisp of hush that curls above your chest. Like smoke from a dying taper dot, it reminds you that not every shadow outside these walls wants you awake. Your toes find the warm patch where the coals linger, smothered beneath a ring of ash that smells faintly of yesterday's stew. You press your heel there, feel the warmth seeping into your bones, chasing the grave chill away. Some say if you listen close, the ash hums, a memory of all the whispers carried in smoke and oil, prayers too soft for the church bell to catch. A mouse scuttles across the rafters, tiny claws skittering on warped beams that groan when the wind rattles the shutters. You count them, each scratch a heartbeat, each patter a word you've never dared to speak. Some nights you name them, small familiars that carry your secrets between the rush mats and the cottage eaves. They slip out under the door when your eyes close, carrying your hush to the hedgerow, to the chapel stoop, to the graves that feed the rosemary root. The rain thickens, fat drops splashing on the clay bowl, hollow drips that echo like footsteps on cold stone. You picture them now, the damp footprints left by the midwife's daughter, the hush clinging to her soles as she crept back from the grave sleeper's bed. They say if you walk in her path, you'll dream in her hush, your belly will settle, your heart will drift like ash on water, and the bile will coil itself into the roots. Far from your ribs, you reach for the sachet above your pillow, fingers brushing the rough linen, the brittle rosemary crumbling under your nails. There's an iron nail tucked deep inside, sharp enough to prick your thumb if you squeeze too tight, a charm against sleepwalkers and the night hags who slip in through cracked shuttershin. The moon is thin as a priest's smile. Your eyes drift to the shutter now. You trace the nail heads hammered in crooked lines, each one rusted to the timber like old secrets no tongue would dare confess. Outside, the wind snags on the thatch, whistling low, a stray cat's moan or a lost soul's prayer. No one can say for sure. Your belly rumbles, not with hunger but with the memory of hunger. You think of the heel of bread you tucked beneath the coals, a trick your grandmother whispered when the hush turned sour. She said the bread would catch the bile. Hold it tight so your dreams could drift free of its bite. You pull the bread out now, half warm, crust soft as peat, its smell curling around you like a blanket the wind cannot peel away. You tear a piece with your teeth, feel it crumble on your tongue, rough, damp, sweet as a hush that holds your heart in its palm. Your grandmother's voice drifts back, a hiss and a hum, half soon, half forgotten. May the hush wrap your bones. May the worms stay deep. May your dreams drip slow as rain through the thatch. You tuck your knees up tighter, straw poking your calves, your heel pressed warm into the coals. You imagine your breath drifting out to join the candle's last flicker, your secrets riding the hush, slipping past the rafters, curling like smoke under the shutter and out into the night. The mouse skitters again, a soft hush of claws, a reminder that no soul sleeps alone, not truly. You think of the grave sleeper's hush, how the dirt knows all your worries, how it hums your sins to sleep. Your lids grow heavy. You count the drips, the clay bowl filling drop by drop, a small baptism for the bile in your chest. You taste the sage on your tongue, bitter, sweet, like secrets left to bloom. Outside, the wind carries the hush deeper, through hedgerows, over graves, across the damp fields where no priest's bell will ever wake what you bury tonight. And inside your ribs, the hush hums softer now. Breathe in, out, and slip your secrets into the coals, into the thatch, into the scratch of mouse claws overhead. Sleep settles, warm as ash. The hush holds you, and the rain says nothing more. You lie there, hush pressed tight against your ribs, and you think you've tasted every bit of what the village mutters behind shuttered doors. The rosemary sachet tucked above your pillow, the grave dust rumor drifting on the night air, bread warmed in your coals, catching your sour bile. But there's something older than the thatch, older than the grave sleeper's hush, an old truth hidden in the cloisters, the damp corners of stone chapels where monks scribble prayers. No living soul dares whisper at dusk. You've heard the rumor that some monks kept the melancholic locked behind ironwood doors, fed them warm goat's milk laced with ground poppy seeds, told them their sorrow was a demon clawing at the inside of their skulls. They called it melancholia, sanguinous, the black bile swimming in your veins, thick as graveyard mud. To cure it, they bled you at dawn, thin cuts behind your ears, small enough that the priest's bladey could slip in without much fuss. The crimson dripped into a wooden bowl, steam rising as though the demon's breath drifted out with your blood. You picture it now, a boy your age pressed to the cold flagstones, breath stuttering through cracked lips as the monk whispers prayerfully. The dust in the rafters remembers, They say some slept with a bloody cloth bound around their heads, so the demon would feed on what leaked out and leave the mind still. You wonder if you do the same. Let the bile run from your ear. Let the hush taste the iron so you might rest without the grave's cold finger brushing your spine. Crack sounds in the rafters, just the timber settling, but your breath catches. You trace the new rumor across your belly. Imagine the red thread sewn under your skin, a charm stitched by the same nuns who stitched altar cloths. They believed the color trapped the bile, a holy barrier so your sleep wouldn't drift down to the burial pit. Your village healer swears by a softer version. A scrap of red wool tied at the wrist, soaked in lamb's bloodletting, dried by the hearth for 3 nights. You know the smell, warm copper, sharp as salt, and the scratch of wool against your skin. It feels like a promise that your sorrow can't slip out and curl under the door-toe. Wake the worms waiting beneath the rosemary bush. Some folk go further. They bury their sleep beneath the floorboards, a small jar filled with toenail clippings, hair combings, and a few drops of blood caught on a cloth. They say the jar traps the hush, keeps the demon drunk on scraps of the body so the rest of you can drift free. You wonder if your neighbors have jars tucked under every bedpost, tiny coffins holding the worst pieces of their waking sorrow. Chill curls under your blanket. You shift, feel the straw poke your thigh, hear the wind hush the walls. The church bell moans in the distance, a sound meant for saints, not for folk like you who feed their hush with stale bread and lambs. Blood. Your thumb rubs a rough scab at your temple, a mark from the last time you let the village barber's blade kiss your skin. He says a little blood sweetens the sleep, takes the bile from behind your eyes, and spills it where the soil can drink it down. But you remember the sting, the way your breath smelled of copper for days. You remember pressing your ear to your grandmother's chest, listening for the hush inside her ribs, wondering if the demon ever slept there too. You breathe out, taste the damp air, the ashes, the faint tang of your own sweat. It clings to your collarbones like a lover you can't quite shake off. In the monastery rumor, the melancholic's sweat was prized, caught in claws, pressed to lips, swallowed like a tonic. They believed a drop of another's sorrow could sweeten your own, like trading curses. Your hush tangled with theirs. You feel your pulse now, a steady beat under the hush. You picture the monks at the cold stone basin, white linen rags soaked in a stranger's sadness, wrung dry over an open mouth. You wonder if that's what you're doing here, trading your hush for the grave sleepers, your sorrow for theirs, letting your dreams feed the roots under the rosemary bush, so the worms stay full and you stay warm a little while longer. Outside, the wind scrapes at the shutters, a soft scrape, not a howl. Your candle burns low, the wick a crooked spine bending to the hush. You roll to your side, knees tucked up, palm pressed flat to your belly where the bile swirls. If you could see inside, you'd find old scars, tiny cuts and threads and rumors, secrets stitched to your ribs so the demon's claws stay dull. You know it's a half-truth, just like the charm above your pillow, the bread and the coals, the mice who carry your hush under the eaves. But it's enough tonight, enough to let the hush settle, enough to let the wind's voice murmur through the timber like a lullaby older than any psalm. You close your eyes, the rumor curling around your breath like a red thread. If the demon's still hungry, Let it lick your temples. Taste the sweat behind your ears. Drink the hush that pools on your tongue. The straw cradles your bones. The wind hushes the grave. Sleep slips in, thick as lamb's blood, soft as a monk's whispered prayer. You, stitched to the hush by rumor and thread, drift down into a dream the worms dare not chew. You lie there, your belly warm from the hush of lamb's blood rumors, and you think you've seen every dark corner that keeps your sorrow coiled, like a snake behind your ribs. But the hush is deeper than blood, deeper than rosemary bundles, or graveyard beds, or the soft prayers a monk might whisper as he catches the last drip of your black bile. You roll onto your side, the rush mat crinkling under your shoulder blades, and your palm drifts to the raw welt hidden beneath your tunic. A secret scratch, a mark you made yourself dot, just shallow enough to sting when you twist dot, it is said. In the hush of alehouses and behind the stone walls of the poorhouse, that a scratch drawn across the ribs can fool the demon inside you. A false door, so your melancholy slips out through the welt instead of dragging you down into the grave. You picture it now? The village boy who swore by this trick, pressing the point of a pig-bone awl into his flesh. 3 lines under the rib, each one crossing the next, a crude rune shaped like a gate the bile might stagger through. He dabbed the lines with goose fat and wild sage, wrapped them in lamb's wool strips and hum, a charm about the grave sleeper's toothless grin. He said he never dreamed of the grave again. Your thumb rubs your own scratch. A thin scab, tender under your nail. It burns just a little, enough to remind you it's there, a red whisper stitched into your skin. The hush loves this. It purrs against your bones when you breathe slow, like a cat curling on a hearthstone. You've heard of worse dot in the next. Hamlet, they say some folk press coins into their cuts, pennies black with candle soot, warm from a beggar's palm. They push them under the skin, just a little, so the copper kisses the blood, a charm against night hags, a promise that no spirit will find a home in the hollow. Under your ribs, you wonder if you'd ever be so bold dot the thought of metal kissing. Your heartbeat makes you shiver, but the hush purrs louder, thick with rumor. Some slip threads through the cuts, bright red linen, drawn through the welt with a pig-bone needle. They knot it at both ends, so the demon's teeth catch on the note and stay busy gnawing, leaving your sleep for you alone. A mouse skitters under your bed, nosing at old crumbs near your shoes. You close your eyes. Picture its tiny claws scratching the packed earth, the soft hush of fur on stone. You wonder if the mouse knows about your welt, if it smells the blood and the copper, if it dreams your dream when it curls in its nest near the wall. You drift for a moment in that thin space where the wind rattles the shutter and the straw creaks under your hip. Your mind slips back to the old wise woman who came one winter's dusk, her hands full of dried nettle and bloodrood. She tied a cord around your wrist, red wool, rough as a beggar's tongue, and whispered that the cord must trail across your welt at least once each night. A leash for your hush, a collar for the sorrow that wants to creep under the graveyard gate. You keep the cord now, hidden in the lintel above your door. Some nights you tie it loose around your belly, the wool scratching your welt like a cat's tongue. It soothes you, the small hurt, the soft rub, the old thread catching the demon's clauses. They rasp against your ribs. Your fingers drift lower. Brush the rough bump of a mark near your hip bone. A tooth mark, old as your first lost hush. You were barely grown. The village healers said the only way to cure your sorrow was to let the grave sleeper taste you. A nibble at dusk, when the wind curled round the church steepling, the owls watched from the rafters. You remember the sting, the press of bone on bone, the way the healer's breath smelled of ale and old herbs. It didn't cure you, but the hush it left behind still hums when you twist in your sleep. A half-scar, half-charm that tastes of old secrets. Your thumb drifts back to the welt. You press until the scab cracks, a tiny weep of warmth against your fingertip. You breathe out, soft, conspiratorial, as if the rush mat itself listens for the hush that leaks through your skin. The wind sighs through the thatch, rattling the rosemary that hangs from the beam. Each leaf crackles like old parchment. Each flake a piece of someone else's sorrow pressed into your ribs. Some say the marks will never heal, that the hush wants them open, soft doors for the bile to slip out. Others claim they close when you bury your secret in the graveyard gate. A lock for your sleep, so the demon rattles at your bones but finds no latch to slip through. You pull your blanket tighter, feel the rough wool scratch your welt like a lover's teeth. Your breath hitches, the hush presses heavier, but not cruel. It loves you. In its crooked way, it wants you warm. It wants your sorrow to drip slow as honey into the grave's waiting maw. Your eyes close, the rush mat groans under your hips, the candle guttering its last hush of light. You trace the welt again, a soft promise, a hush stitched in blood and rumor. No priest would bless it, but you do. With every breath, you bless the cut, the coin, the thread, the tooth mark. You bless the hush that curls through the scratch, a secret gate, a lullaby older than any monk's psalm. Sleep presses closer, the wind carrying your breath through the thatch, the mouse curling tighter in its nest, your welt weeping its tiny drop of hush. You smile, the hush tastes you back, soft as dusk, sharp as old copper, and you slip into it, ribs marked, belly warm, secrets safe. Nothing left but the wind, the grave, the hush that holds you like a mother who never weeps. You lie there, your thumb drifting across your ribs where the scratch still throbs under the hush of the old blanket, and you wonder how far these welts travel, winding through centuries like a silk thread stitched into the skin of sleep. A lantern flickers in your mind, guttering beside a straw pallet, a welt fresh across a peasant's belly. You imagine it, the crack of pig bone awl, the copper penny warm from the beggar's hand, the thread knotted tight to catch a demon's teeth. That hush slips through the candle's flame, gliding forward through old rafters and stone floors, across the hush of graveyards where moss curls over broken tombs. Now your gaze drifts to your own bed. You run your finger along the edge of your pillow, the faint warmth still trapped there from your cheek. Is this cotton softer than coarse linen? Maybe, but the hush knows. It knows. You still keep your charms close, your midnight thoughts buried under your mattress like a poppet sewn with crow feathers and bramble root. The wind rattles your window. A hush. You draw your blanket tighter, your bones pressing against modern sheets. Your phone's glow a tiny halo on the knitstand. You scroll, your thumb tracing ghostly runes of strangers' secrets, sad prayers typed in dark rooms. You think, is it so different? A village boy scratched a welt under his ribs to trick his sorrow to leaving by dawn. You press your thumb into your temple, willing the hush of your own restless thoughts to slip through your skin, like the penny that kissed the blood beneath. His flesh lets you lie there, and the hush presses closer, warm as the grave, yet kind as a mother who never weeps. You see them, the barefoot girl slipping rosemary sprigs under her mattress, the bent old healer muttering a charm about the grave sleeper's toothless grin, the boy whose ribs held the hush tight with scarred knots of red thread. You see them in the way you light your lavender candle, the way you hush your mind with sleepy music or whispered affirmations. You call it self-care. They called it survival. You bundle your grief in glass jars and daily planners. They'd bled theirs onto bone awls and lamb's wool rags. The hush curls round your ankles like a cat. In the rushes, you remember that, the village girl pressed rosemary under her pillow to ward off the night hag's teeth. You drift your gaze to your window, the darkness outside thick as a monk's cloak. The street lamp glow your modern holy relic, your walls hold your secrets. The faint scent of yesterday's incense, the stain of your tears on your pillow's seam, the warmth you hide under your blanket when no one is watching Dot, that's all the same hush, just a new skin for an old sorrow. Once, the melancholy was called black bile, a sickness of the humors creeping through your guts like snakes in a damp cellar. Dot. Now it's a name you tap into a search bar at 2 a.m. Why can't I sleep? Why does my mind scratch at my ribs when the world goes silent? You think you're alone, but the hush knows better. Dot. It carries you backward to that rush mat creaking under the weight of a peasant's sorrow, to the graveyard gate where the boy dreamed he'd bury his grief, to the grave sleeper's toothless grin peering from behind old tombstones. A loop, a hush that never leaves, only changes its shape to fit your bones. You turn onto your side, your blanket rougher than you remember, like the scratchy lamb's wool they used to wrap the bleeding welt. Your heart thuds soft as a drum. You wonder how many nights your ancestors lay awake, tracing their scratches, pressing copper coins to their ribs, humming charms in the hush so the bile might slip out into the grave's mouth. Before dawn, they kept secrets too, tiny poppets buried under the hearth, a bit of hair, a drop of blood smeared on a cold stone by moonlight. They whispered prayers to saints whose bones lay hidden in gilded shrines, relics they never touched, only dreamed of when the hush pressed too close. You keep yours in your pocket, your phone lit with strangers who ache like you do, their secrets stitched into posts you scroll until your eyes burn, a modern shrine, a holy relic buzzing on your knit stand while your ribs ache with the same old melancholy. You run your palm along your chest, half imagining the welt that's not there, yet feels real as the hush. Dot. Would you scratch yourself if you believed it would bleed the sadness out? Would you slip a penny under your skin to trick your sorrow into leaving before dawn? Would you tie a red thread round your wrist, let it trail across your belly like the wise woman said, catching the demon's claws one knot at a time? A car hisses past your window, tires on wet street, a soft echo of the hush that rattles your bones. You shiver, not from cold, but from the hush curling tighter, pressing secrets into your ribs. Somewhere the mouse that nested under the rush mat still dreams under old floorboards, its tiny claws scratching a lullaby you can almost hear. Somewhere A child turns in her sleep, rosemary crumbling under her cheek, the night hag's teeth catching on the red thread tied round her ankle. You close your eyes, the hush so warm now, your ribs soft as parchment. You feel the graveyard gate in your pulse, an iron latch that swings when your breath deepens, letting out one drop of sorrow at a time. No priest will come to cleanse it, no relic will carry it away. Is yours. A hush older than your name, stitched through your bloodline like a welt that never quite fades. You drift, a secret keeper, a hush bearer, a grave sleeper's child. The wind rattles your window once more, like the knuckles of a ghost tapping on old stone. You turn your face deeper into your pillow. Your blanket smells of yesterday's sweat, the hushed taste of rosemary, candle wax, and secrets pressed into damp clay. In the hush. Your bones remember. In the hush. Your ribs bloom with invisible welts that soothe your sleep when the sorrow stirs. In the hush. You slip your grief under your tongue like a graveyard charm. Safe from the night hag's teeth. Your eyelids drift lower. Your breath curls through the hush like a prayer too soft to stain the scrolls. Your room grows small. Your ancestors stand behind your walls, their welts blowing like candle wicks under coarse linen. You're the same hush, a quiet thread that never breaks. Sleep now. Let the hush hold you. Ribs marked in secret, heart wrapped in red thread. Let your sorrow slip through the iron. Gate into the grave that never weeps. Your home, a keeper of the hush, the same hush that will hold you tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. They say when the old healer died, they found a bundle of hair, bone splinters, and scraps of linen tucked inside her straw mattress. You lie there now, the hush pressing into your ribs, wondering whose hair it was. A lover's, a rival's, or her own, torn out in some midnight fit when the black bile curled too tight in her belly. They say her hut smelled always of burnt rosemary and sheep's milk gone sour. If you pressed your ear to her door on a winter night, you'd hear her mutter to the bones, a name, always the same, never written down. Some swear that name still curls from her old hearth, where the ashes lie cold under layers of moss and nettle. You roll onto your side, your modern mattress too clean, your pillow too soft. But your mind drifts through the hush, back to that hut, where a girl once laid her sorrow on the hearthstones, letting the heat suck it from her skin like a sickness scraped out by fire. She thought if she offered enough hair, blood, finger, bones, the hush would hush her for good. But the hush only grew, thicker than wool, softer than her own mother's hand. Some nights you swear you feel her breath in the dark, a single sigh threading through your hair like an old charm. You trace your collarbone. Imagine the lamb's blood they used to daub along the chest, a barrier against the night hag's gnawing teeth. The healer's hut stands no more, but the rumor stands taller than any ruin. They say the girl who paid her last copper never woke, yet no one found her under the floorboards. No grave bore her name. You wonder, what did they really bury under that hut? The rumor drifts like wood smoke through your mind, a small body wrapped in rosemary sprigs, jaw wired shut with red thread so her secrets wouldn't slip out. They say the hush took her bones, turned them soft as moss, let them root under the hearth On stormy nights, if you press your palm to the right patch of earth, you feel the hush hum through your wrist, rattling your teeth in your sleep. They say the old healer's eyes were pale as bone, blind, yet she saw every sin that clung to your ribs when you knelt before her. You imagine it now, your own body folded on rushes, palms scraped raw from pressing coins too hard into the floor. Dot, would you beg her to take it all, your grief, your sleepless nights, the hush that knots itself inside your belly every dusk? Would you scratch your ribs raw, offer the welt to her poppet, the penny to her mouthless prayers? The rumor loops, never quite ending. They say a boy once crept into her hut. When the moon was a sliver blade, he brought her a bird's skull, wrapped in a torn scrap of his mother's nightdress, a trade for dreams without the grave sleeper's grin. They say he woke at dawn, ribs unmarked, but the hush slipped under his tongue like warm milk turned sour. He never spoke again. His teeth rattled out one by one, each a tiny tombstone for a secret that never made the scrolls. You think of your own tongue pressed against your teeth, tasting salt and sleep. Would you give it up, your words, if it meant the hush would lift? Or would you keep them close, your grief stitched behind your lips, a whisper only your pillow ever hears? They say the old healer's ghost lingers, barefoot in the rushes where her hut used to stand. On nights when the wind howls like a starving dog, she drifts door to door, pressing a finger to each latched dot if your heart aches too loud. She slips inside, a hush sharper than any blade, sweeter than any prayer. She kneels by your bed, tucks her cold hand under your ribs, and hums a lullaby in a tongue you almost understand. You turn over, your blanket rougher than you remember, like the lamb's wool that scratched a peasant's ribs, raw centuries ago. You swear you feel it now, the hush pressing your bones down, pinning your sorrow between the mattress and the dark, a weight and a comfort all at once, a grave you climb into willingly each night. Some say the hush is a mercy, a soft grave you carry in your ribs, so you never wake alone. Some say it's a curse, a worm coiled through your spine, gnawing at your marrow when the moon tilts just right. You wonder which you'd choose, if you could, but your breath comes slow now, the hush purring through your chest, the rumors slipping under your eyelids like damp linen. Outside, the wind rattles the shutter, a knuckle knocking at your ribs. You drift in the hush, bones remembering old welts, tongue tracing ghostly prayers dotting the hut's ashes. The rumor curls like rosemary smoke, wrapping your sleep in secrets too heavy. For dawn, Dot, they say one night, when the moon is a cracked tooth and the hush holds your ribs so tight, you can't speak. You'll slip under the hearth where the old healer's bones lie soft as moss, your sorrow stitched to hers forever. And in that hush you will sleep, and in that hush you will dream, and in that hush you will never wake alone. There's always a story that never made the scroll, a rumor that slips through the hush, rattling your bones when the candle flickers out. You lie there, your cheek pressed to the pillow's seam, wondering which secrets chose your ribs. As their grave, Dot, it's warmer now, but not safe. You feel that, don't you? Even as your heartbeat slows, the hush curls tight around the edge of your thoughts like ivy on old stone. They say the healer's poppet was never found, only its shadow scratched into the underside of a rotting plank. Lines of ash and rosemary tangled with mouse droppings and old straw. You imagine your own secrets scrawled there, Words you never spoke, fears you never burned, the prayers that rattled behind your teeth but never escaped. The hush knows every one, and it presses them close, smoothing your hair with fingers made of dusk and damp earth. You close your eyes, pretend not to hear the echo in the rafters, but it hums anyway, a bone lullaby, a scratch that starts under your ribs and works its way into your dreams. You think of the girl who slept under the hearth, how her breath turned to soot and her name to moss, when the hush swallowed her whole. No scroll ever wrote her down. Yet here you lie, tasting her sorrow behind your own teeth. Centuries later, the wind rattles the shutter, a hush on the move. You see it, soft as fog, sharp as splinters, carrying the rumor on its back like a stray cat, slipping through an open stable door. It curls under your blanket, warm at first, then cold where it presses against your spine. You don't push it away. You never do. They say there was a boy, pale as candle wax, ribs like harp strings. He scratched the name of the grave sleeper into the floorboards under his straw bed, each letter marked with a drop of blood squeezed from a thumb. His mother found him at dawn, mouth open, but the hush inside his chest still hummed, a sound that slipped through the cracks in the cottage walls, rattling pans on the hearth, setting the crows to scream at the barn's eaves. No priest would bury him, no charm would bind him. So the hush took him, ribs and all, a secret stitched in soft mud, where the garden rose still weep come spring. You pull your blanket tighter, the rumor scratching your mind now, like nails across a coffin's lid. What if your secrets made the hush stronger? What if the grave you carry under your skin is the same one that boy curled into centuries ago? You press your hand to your ribs, feel the old welt that never quite fades, the place where all your restless thoughts settle when the lights go. Outside, the trees shift in the wind, branches like bone fingers tapping the walls. Some say the hush travels in those branches, a scratch that slips through chimney smoke, slides behind shutters, settles on your chest when you can't breathe deep enough to pray it away. They never wrote that down, never inked it on calfskin or scraped it into the chapel wall, but it lives, a rumor older than any saint's tooth or holy relic locked behind iron bars. You turn onto your back, stare at the cracked plaster overhead. You imagine a mouse crawling through the rafters, belly fat with stolen secrets, tail dragging a bit of red thread across the beams. You hear it gnaw, a soft sound that might be the hush nibbling your fear into smaller pieces, so it fits better in your dreams. They say some rumors grow teeth, tiny and sharp, tucked behind your ears where the hush feeds on your unspoken dreads. The old healer's hut is gone, but its door never locked. They say if you stand in the ruins on a night like this, hush pressed close to your ribs, you'll hear a voice hum your name through the nettles, a voice that never made the scroll, but claws its way into every new throat that forgets what the poppet cost. You wonder, what's the cost for you? A sleepless night traded for peace. Tomorrow, a secret pressed so deep into your bones that even the grave can't shake it loose? The hush doesn't answer. It never does. It hums and curls, winding round your ankles. Like graveyard mist, you imagine the old hearth, still there, buried under centuries of nettle and moss. If you press your hand into the dirt, they say, you can feel the warmth still trapped in the stones. the rumor humming under your palm like a heartbeat that never stops. You wonder whose heartbeat it is, yours, or the healer's, or the hush itself. The wind dies down. The hush grows heavy. You trace the welt on your ribs. It feels deeper tonight, like it might split open and spill all the secrets you thought you buried. But they won't spill. Not yet. The hush keeps them close, tucks them under your tongue like a bitter herb. No one will write your rumor down. No one will carve it into oak or ink it on a scroll. But the hush remembers. It scratches it into the marrow of your bones. So when you turn in your sleep, it echoes against your ribs, a promise that you'll never lie here alone, that the hush will cradle your sorrow, feed it small bites of warmth until dawn. You drift, half here, half in the hut that never stands and never falls. You dream of rosemary sprigs and broken teeth, of poppets sewn with hair pulled from your own scalp, of a boy's thumb bleeding a name onto rough planks. You dream, and the rumor hums on. They say the hush is only as strong as the secrets it keeps, and yours are sweet to it. Your sorrow tastes of rosemary and red thread, grave dirt and candle wax. You never asked to feed it, but here you are, ribs open, hush pressed close as breath. No scroll will keep your name safe. No priest will lift your sorrow. Only the hush, soft and damp and hungry as the grave you carry under your skin. Sleep if you can, dream if you must. But remember, some stories never made the scroll. Some rumors scratch the rafters until your ribs. In the hush. And when you wake, you will wonder if the hush ever really left at all. And now, hush, you lie here, the old rumor coiled under your ribs, like a cat curling into its own warmth. The wind's gone quiet. The shutter sighs once more, then stills, like it too has grown tired of rattling bones and old prayers. You slip your palm under your cheek. Feel the pillow scratchy but soft, the faint warmth left by your own restless turning. Under your ribs, the hush hums softer now. Not hungry, not sharp, just there, a secret you carry like a charm no priest could bless, no scroll could bind. They say, if you breathe slow enough, the hush seeps from your marrow into the blanket, wraps around you like a cloak stitched from old rosemary, and the dust of half-burnt herbs. You can almost smell it, a ghost of something sweet that always rotted at the edges. But tonight, no rot, no fear, just warmth as your mind drifts to where poppets and graveyard stones slip out of focus. Think of your bones. Long ago, someone buried bones like yours under hearthstones that glowed warm through winters thick as hunger. Some say those bones still hum, tiny hymns pressed into the dirt where moss grows fat and nettles clutch at your ankles, your bones softer. Now your shoulders heavier against the mattress, the rumor sinks into you like warm milk, like a low lullaby your mother never sang. You wonder, will the hush keep its promise? Will it cradle your sorrow without tearing you raw by dawn? Will it slip your secrets under the bed where only mice and ghosts can find them? You feel it, that gentle tug at the base of your spine, like a dream rooting itself deep so it won't fly away come morning. Your eyelids twitch. The hush rocks them closed. Outside, the trees stand guard, branches woven tight like fingers, rated over a secret grave. No rumor slips past them tonight. No ghost drifts through the shutter crack. No poppet scrapes the rafters. Tonight, the hush stands watch, pressing its damp palm over your ribs, its cold breath a balm for the sorrow that will still be yours tomorrow, but softer, smaller. Somewhere far off, the old healer's hut sags in the wind, but its hearth glows with a flame you can't see. Only feel you see her, eyes pale as bone, lips cracked with unspoken prayers. She hums, not for you exactly, but for every sorrow that ever folded itself into linen and dirt. Her lullaby finds you anyway, seeps through your collarbones like warm oil poured from an old clay lamp. You breathe deeper now, your ribs expand. Then settle. You think of lamb's wool on rough skin, rush mats scratchy against a peasant's spine, graveyard moss slipping between your toes when you kneel where the hush first learned to hum. You don't mind, it's just a dream now. The rumor heavier than your thoughts, lighter than the sleep that waits on the other side. They say the hush never really leaves. It crawls with you from cradle to coffin, changing shape as your bones stretch and shrink, as your secrets knot tighter. With every new moon. Tonight, though, it's a gentle thing, a low purr curled around your lungs, licking your heartbeat like a mother cat grooming her last kitten. You roll onto your side, the pillow sighs under your cheek. The hush shifts with you, softer than lamb's wool, sweeter than any rosemary sprig tucked under a peasant's damp pillow centuries ago. Your toes drift warm against rough sheets. Your breath catches, then releases, a rumor slipping from your mouth to the dark. You drift in and out of the healer's hut, the graveyard gate, the poppet-stitched mouth. You drift down through the straw mattress where bones once whispered your name, back up into the hush that cradles you now. You drift through the nettles, scratching your shins, the moss pressing cool against your palms, the hush humming like a lullaby too old to write down. Outside, the trees hush too, branches tapping the walls not to scare you, but to remind you that this night is yours. Your sorrow is yours, but so is the hush that tucks it under your tongue, where no scroll will ever find it. Your breath is yours, slow and warm as grave dirt in spring. Your sleep is yours, drifting through rumors and poppets, herbs and hearthstones, all soft now. And when you wake, the hush will still hum. Your ribs will still hold secrets that never made the scroll, but your bones will be warm, your pillow damp only with sleep, not tears. Let the hush keep you. Let the rumor cradle your dreams. Let your sorrow soften like moss under the hearth. Sleep and slip deeper. The hush is here. It always was, and it will not leave you alone. Not tonight. Not ever.